Tonight, a new beach shock in the fallout over a tragedy at Phillip Island. Details live. A century-old Captain Cook statue hacked down in an Australia Day backlash. Exclusive, a night of fear for a top politician in Victoria's crime wave. A family's heart-wrenching farewell for a young doctor killed in a Doncaster street. The pictures that sparked a great white shark warning for the Mornington Peninsula, and a season-shattering blow for an unlucky Carlton star.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. The deaths of 4 people in a tragedy at Phillip Island has exposed a new beach shock. 7 News can reveal that one of 2 life-saving helicopters is set to be grounded following government funding cuts. The rescue helicopter will stop flying beach patrols this weekend, just days after the state's worst mass drowning disaster in 19 years.
The 4 Indian nationals fell victim to treacherous conditions. Experienced surfers and lifesavers say they were caught in a rip after a dramatic change in the tide. They stood little chance as they were dragged out to sea.
It's a low swell and the waves aren't that big. It looks particularly safe, but straight out there is a rip that's going out, and you can see it's 45 degrees where the waves aren't breaking. That's a really dangerous spot to enter the water, particularly if you're not a good swimmer and you don't know the conditions.
Reema Sondhi is the first victim to be identified. The 43-year-old only arrived in Australia 2 weeks ago. Her 20-year-old niece and 23-year-old nephew both died at the scene. Her other 20-year-old niece didn't survive the night in hospital.
This is an extremely tragic day.
Off-duty lifesavers surfing at the time, unable to save them.
Anyone that is willing to get into that situation and provide assistance, whether off-duty or on-duty, is absolutely remarkable.
As they face another 5 weeks of summer, Victoria's volunteer lifesavers will be without one of their 2 rescue helicopters. 7 News can reveal from Saturday it will be grounded because they don't have enough money to put it in the air. Government grants falling from $15.1 million in 2022 to $13.8 million last year. The Phillip Island victims were visiting the popular tourist location along with 5 other family members.
This is horrific, and for those people that witnessed it, I'm sure it's something that they will unfortunately have to recall for the rest of their lives.
Behind each one of these drownings is a family, is a brother, is a sister, is a mother, is a daughter.
Since the start of summer, 19 people have drowned in beaches and rivers across the state. The death toll is up by 2 compared to the same time last year, as Lifesaving Victoria urges swimmers to be vigilant heading into the long weekend.
Public holidays generally mean you are twice as likely to drown.
And Cassie Zervos joins us now. Cassie, the Premier's office has just responded.
Well, Mitch, 7 News contacted the Allen government in regards to Lifesaving Victoria's claims about lack of funding. The Premier's office detailed the current spending but wouldn't specify if further funding would be made to keep the rescue chopper in operation. Sources have told 7 News it is a critical part of rescues and patrolling, and as we go into a long weekend and warm weather next week, having one grounded could potentially put lives at risk. Mitch.
Cassie Zervos, thank you. The state government has vowed to rebuild a controversial Captain Cook statue hacked down by vandals in an Australia Day protest. Bethan Yeoman is live in St Kilda, and Beth, this was a highly planned attack.
Mitch, 7 News understands up to 6 people took part in destroying the statue last night. Their vandalism was caught on CCTV, which is now in the hands of police. It took the group around 15 minutes to saw off the top of the monument using a ladder and an angle grinder. They then posted it all on social media.
A century-old statue hacked off below the knees overnight in St Kilda, graffitied with the words "The colony will fall," a protest against Australia Day.
We don't need historical moments that upset a lot of First Nation people.
The monument has been defaced in previous years, but never to this extent.
He's got nothing to do with Australia Day. He had nothing to do with the settlement of Australia.
The council says it had arranged security for the statue for this evening, but the vandals struck early, and last night police were reportedly too slow to act.
Police were notified of the incident whilst it was occurring and they weren't able to attend in time, which is unfortunate.
Red paint was also splattered across the Queen Victoria Monument near the Botanical Gardens.
This sort of vandalism really has no place in our community. We will be working with council to repair and reinstate the statue.
The Anti-Australia Day attack comes as Woolworths' holiday controversy deepens. The CEO defending the decision to scrap merchandise while promoting multicultural events. Writing in a leaked staff memo, celebrations like Diwali and Lunar New Year are often centred around connection over food, despite running ads promoting Australia Day barbecues.
Those people don't realise that they're just condescending people that just want to have, look at me, I'm standing up for the Indigenous peoples.
Activist groups say the move shows their hard work has paid off.
What it tells me is that sustained effort has been pretty successful because people don't want to buy tacky stuff.
At least 30 of Victoria's 79 councils won't hold a citizenship ceremony tomorrow. That's 16 more than last year.
Australia Day will mean different things to different people, and that's totally okay with me, but that doesn't mean you should deny people who are desperate and excited about becoming an Australian citizen.
Bethan Yeoman, 7 News.
A high-profile state politician has endured a night of fear after falling victim to Melbourne's crime crisis. Georgie Crozier was home alone when a young offender climbed onto her roof, then tried to kick in her door.
Scaling a roof at 1 a.m, then trying to force open a back door. Melbourne is no stranger to home invasions, but this time the victim was Shadow Health Minister Georgie Crozier.
It's really, really terrifying. It's unpleasant and terrifying.
At first, he scoped out the MP's front windows before making his way to the back. When he fell from her roof, the sound woke Ms Crozier.
Went to the back to my spare room and looked down and saw him trying to get into the back door.
She dialed 000 but quickly took matters into her own hands.
I yelled out and basically said, nick off, I've got you on CCTV.
The young offender ran from the backyard, but he didn't leave.
He's kicking the front door. What are you thinking in that moment?
That was probably the most concerning in terms of that aggression that he was willing to do. I was trying to scare him off.
Police arrived at Ms Crozier's home in minutes. The man had fled.
Victoria Police have definitely seen a rise in aggravated burglaries, but we're at a point where we're trying to do everything we can to tackle that problem.
In 2022, there were 4,201 aggravated burglaries. Last year, that increased by 33% to over 5,500.
Now is not the time to raise the age of criminal responsibility or loosen bail laws.
What will you do now as far as security, beefing up the security that you already have?
I've had my security people around again today. Anyone that tries to get in, it'll be even more difficult.
Police say they've increased their night patrols, but they want Victorians to remain vigilant. Anyone who sees suspicious cars or people in their street should report that behaviour immediately.
We'd rather attend and it be nothing than attend and it be something.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
Anthony Albanese's tax backflip is under fire, with the opposition claiming people on average salaries will pick up just $15 a week, while the government collects billions. The PM confirmed his shake-up as he was branded a liar.
He admits he's broken an election promise, though won't say those words.
I'm very clear about the fact that we have changed our position.
Comparing the cost of living crisis to the COVID pandemic, demanding a similar emergency response.
When economic circumstances change, the right thing to do is to change economic policy.
Promising tax cuts for all, including those earning below $40,000, mostly women, who'll get $650.
Under the Morrison plan, they would have got nothing.
though got plenty in stages 1 and 2, the cuts under his revised stage 3 from July 1, on $60,000 an extra $804 to $1,179, $75,000 jumps to $1,554, $100,000 now $2,179, $150 over $3,700. Above that level though, tax cuts are halved. For those earning above $190,000, from $9,000 to $4,500. He'll need the Greens' support, and they want more.
As this now works its way through the Parliament, we'll be asking, is this really the best that Labor can do?
Opposition leader Peter Dutton has come out swinging, labelling Anthony Albanese a liar and demanding an election. Although, unlike his deputy Susan Lee, not yet committing to fight the changes.
The Prime Minister has knowingly and willingly lied to the Australian people. And I don't think the Australian people will easily forget or forgive. You should call an election and put the change position to the Australian people.
But reserving his final judgment on the package.
Make our position known in due course.
Claiming Mr Albanese's real cynical aim is the Dunkley by-election in Victoria on March 2, forced by the death of Labor's Peter Murphy. The message from there today:
more money in the back pocket.
You know, it's like a few dollars.
No, it's not enough.
It's good for everybody, but keep to his promises.
Meaning he has more explaining to do. Now, Peter Dutton says that $15 a week for people on average incomes is very little, the old sandwich and a milkshake if you're lucky, while Treasury concedes today that keeping the 37-cent tax bracket means workers will pay $28 billion more in so-called bracket creep over the next decade as they go up the scales. But Peter Dutton's most dangerous attack is on trust. He likens this to Julia Gillard's carbon tax moment, predicting it will be the end for Anthony Albanese, just as that was for her. The first real test will be that Dunkley by-election. It has suddenly taken on a much more serious complexion for Anthony Albanese. If he loses that now, he could be in real strife. Mitch?
Mark Riley in Canberra, thank you. Traffic is crawling across the city tonight as Melburnians hit the road for the long weekend. Emma O'Sullivan joins us now, and Emma, wet weather has also caused a number of crashes.
Mitch, it's not a great evening to be on the roads. Traffic is heavy right across our suburbs, thanks in part to that rain that started at the beginning of peak hour, and also the number of people trying to get out of Melbourne to start the long weekend. And yes, crashes added to the headaches this afternoon, including one on Eastlink outbound, also on Grieve Parade at Altona. Lane closures there badly affecting the West Gate. There was also a breakdown outbound in the Domain Tunnel. Traffic is also bumper to bumper on Queen's Parade and some sections of CityLink. The public transport system, unfortunately, isn't exempt. There are delays for the trains on the Alamein, Belgrave and Lilydale lines. Major delays there thanks to an equipment fault in the Burnley area. Mitch?
Emma O'Sullivan, thank you. A young doctor murdered in a Doncaster street has been laid to rest in an emotional service. Ashley Gordon's family led the tributes as hundreds of mourners packed a Morwell church.
A guard of honour for a young doctor taken in the prime of his life. Dr Ashley Gordon's coffin was guided through the streets of his hometown of Morwell, escorted by police.
I held my brother's hand for the last time yesterday, and it was the hardest moment of my life.
More than 400 mourners attended the service, remembering the adventurous cosmetic surgeon.
The journey that started in the streets of Morwell and reached heights only surpassed by the mountains that he climbed to become the successful Melbourne doctor that most of us knew.
Before his murder, allegedly at the hands of two teenagers, following a botched home invasion.
It makes no sense that someone could do this to you. Such a pointless thing. And who knows what you could have accomplished if you had lived a full life.
The 33-year-old's Mercedes a week ago scoured for evidence, today forming part of a long procession.
We will speak your name often and keep your memory alive. I'll take care of the Merc for you, buddy. Love, Dad.
And there are many who will continue to stand by you all on the search for answers and justice for your boy.
This isn't goodbye, little brother. I'll see you again one day. Until we meet again, Brother Bear.
Georgia Bennett Murphy, 7 News.
A Category 3 cyclone is bearing down on Queensland tonight with a direct hit expected in coming hours. Authorities have already declared a disaster as Tropical Cyclone Kirrily threatens a 700-kilometre stretch from Innisfail to Serena. Townsville is in the firing line. It's the strongest cyclone to threaten the city in more than 50 years. Residents have been warned to stay inside and expect up to 300 millimetres of rain. A great white shark sighting has prompted a warning to swimmers along the Mornington Peninsula. Authorities spotted the shark near the Sorrento Pier and say it was probably drawn there by careless fishermen.
An apex predator spotted circling near the Sorrento Pier last night. Authorities confirming it was a great white shark.
It's about the length of a jet ski, so probably 2 metres, maybe a little over.
With the shark spotted just 25 metres from shore, Vic Emergency quickly issued this warning, urging beachgoers to stay clear of the water.
Be alert and cautious as you should be.
The beach was still off limits today as water authorities scoured the area with eyes in the sky, using drones to see if the shark was still lurking in the shallows, but it was nowhere to be seen.
I don't think I'll be putting them in the water today.
But as word of the unusual summer visitor spread, many holidaymakers ignored the warnings.
I'm not super worried about it.
Experts believe they may know what is attracting these sharks to come so close to the pier, believing that recreational fishermen who dump their fish waste close to the shoreline may inadvertently be increasing shark activity in the area. That's why the Victorian Fisheries Authority is encouraging everyone to dump their waste responsibly.
Shouldn't be dumping it in shallow water, and it should be ideally put into the waste bins provided.
Shark attacks are extremely rare in Victoria, with no fatalities recorded in the past 30 years. Sonia Marinelli, 7 News.
A favourite son at Carlton has suffered a cruel injury blow. Tim Watson, heartbreaking news for Jack Silvani.
Mitch, the three letters every footballer dreads. Chief football reporter Mitch Cleary broke the news earlier today. Mitch, Silvani will miss all of 2024.
Tim, his season is over before a ball has been bounced. Scans this afternoon confirming a ruptured left ACL for Silvani after an innocuous incident during match practice here at training today. It is the opposite knee to the one that he had troubles with during last year's final series, and the latest ACL this pre-season after Bailey Smith at the Dogs and Dan McStay at the Pies.
Jack was running, it planted his left leg and changed direction, and unfortunately I think he felt a pop. He'd be devastated. Yeah, you spoke to him briefly before.
Importantly, the 26-year-old is contracted for next year, but it's horrible timing as the Blues contend for a flag. Tim?
It is, thanks Mitch. Also coming up, the Aussie Quicks in demolition mode at the Gabba as a teammate gets a send-off on day one. Novak Djokovic puts in his own dirty work at Melbourne Park, how a key rival is pushing through the pain to stop the Joker's run, and Mitch will also explain the details behind a shock departure at the Saints today.
OK, thank you very much, Tim. We'll see you a bit later. A speed camera shutdown has police scrambling as we head into the long weekend. We'll have their message to drivers next on 7 News. Also coming up, the hunt for thugs on the loose in Melbourne's southeast. Threats of more train strikes after a day of disruption. Later, the hot numbers as $150 million goes on the line in just over 3 hours' time.
And the rain continues through the night, easing tomorrow morning. I'll have full details later in 7 News.
A woman is fighting for life after being run over in a front yard at Frankston South. The victim, in her 50s, was struck when a male driver drove onto the property late yesterday.
Looked like they were helping someone that was on the floor, and then later on saw someone getting wheeled into the back of the ambulance on fluids and stuff like that as well, so that was pretty scary.
No charges have been laid. A dog owner has been hospitalised after a frenzied attack in Melbourne's southeast. He was approached by two men who tried to steal his husky before turning violent.
Relentless and violent, hooded thugs attack a man with a garden stake as shoppers walk by a metre away.
The parties are not known, it is unprovoked and something you wouldn't do to someone who's just walking his dog.
It was the second time within minutes they'd approached the 25-year-old victim as he walked his husky along the Princess Highway at Dandenong. Earlier, they'd offered to buy the dog before turning violent.
They've started to talk, and then he's tried to take the two offenders have tried to take his dog, which resulted in them assaulting him.
Nearby security cameras captured the two suspects before the November 27 attack, but police have been unable to identify them and need help.
Any dashcam footage, I know it's been a while, but any footage they might have that might assist.
The victim ran bleeding to a nearby business to seek help. He was then taken to hospital in shock with a laceration to his face. He's since fully recovered and is back walking his dog.
Obviously, he can't really understand why they did it.
The assault took place metres from a park that's popular with families.
I have to find a good place to go if these things keep happening around you.
Tyra Stowers, 7 News.
The Victorian Government is at the centre of a new class action over its housing plan to build 800,000 new homes in 10 years. Inner Melbourne Community Legal says the decision to demolish public housing towers neglects the human rights of the residents. The claim was filed at the Supreme Court as the government touted plans to build 350 new homes in Hawthorn. A mobile speed camera shutdown has police scrambling to get out in force for the long weekend on our roads. Staff operating roadside cameras have walked off the job, halving the number of units available across the state.
Police out en masse for the long weekend, but half the mobile speed camera cars not out because of industrial action. Even more when operators strike on Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's frustrating.
Heartbreaking for Lisa Markovic, who lost her brother Daniel on our roads.
I just feel like people's safety hasn't been put at the forefront of this decision making.
Police insist they can still enforce safety, but...
Well, there's no good time to have a lowering of the capacity of any of our enforcement tools.
The dispute over pay and security escalated when camera operator Serco refused to pay staff when they put out warning signs and banned some paperwork.
Serco's overreach has led to a situation where they're putting the pressure back on police to have a presence over the long weekend.
During last year's Australia Day period, 6 people were killed, more than 2,000 speeding offences were detected. Police say they'll compensate for the lack of mobile speed cameras this long weekend by the force of their own numbers.
The fixed cameras are fixed and they're there, they work 24/7. Police vehicles are out there detecting speed 24/7.
And this plea to the unions and the company.
It'd be ideal if they could get a bit of a wriggle on and get that sorted out.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
The Rail, Tram and Bus Union is refusing to rule out further V-Line strike action after a 4-hour walk-off brought the entire network to a standstill this morning.
If V-Line continues down this path, there is no doubt that there'll be more industrial action.
Don't strike, talk. We need to compromise if we're to get an outcome here.
4,000 country commuters were forced onto coaches during the morning peak as another 12,000 passengers heeded the warning to stay away. V-Line and the union have been locked in a bitter dispute since June. There's action on supermarket profits as Australia's consumer watchdog prepares to step in on prices at the checkout. Details are next. Also ahead, a family holiday turns to tragedy in New Zealand. Ukraine accused of downing a plane carrying its own POWs. And the rescue mission to save a roux in deep trouble. The federal government has ordered an independent investigation into the country's supermarkets. Rob Scott joins us now from Canberra. And Rob, the inquiry will be led by the competition watchdog.
Yeah, Peter, the ACCC will look at claims that the big supermarket chains have been price gouging, paying particular attention to the difference between how much they are paying their suppliers and how much they are charging their customers. So we should get a real sense of just how big their markups really are. It'll also examine a number of other things like online shopping, loyalty programs and the competitiveness of smaller retailers.
For me, it's this simple. When farmers are selling their product for less, supermarkets should be charging Australians at the checkout less.
Now, Coles and Woolworths say, like all other businesses, they too are battling under rising costs, but they're doing their best to keep the prices on their shelves down. They say they are happy to be part of this investigation, which is set to run for 12 months, with an interim report out later this year. Peter?
Rob Scott in Canberra, thank you. An Australian family's holiday has turned to tragedy in New Zealand after a 10-year-old girl fell into a fast-flowing creek in the Fiordland region. She was swept away and by the time she was recovered, she could not be revived. Police say it was a very traumatic event and they're providing the family with support. Dozens of Ukrainians held as prisoners by Russia have been killed in a plane crash near the Ukrainian border. All 74 people on board died instantly, including 65 prisoners of war who were being moved in a prisoner swap deal. Moscow blames Kyiv for shooting down the military aircraft. Ukraine accuses Russia of playing with lives by not warning them who was on board. Aviation officials in America have blocked Boeing from building any more of its 737 MAX 9 aircraft after a door blew out on an Alaskan Airlines flight. It came as the company's chief executive was hauled to Washington to answer some blunt safety questions.
Sparking terror at 16,000 feet, last month's heart-stopping mid-air emergency. It blew a hole in this Boeing craft and the company's safety record. Its boss called to Capitol Hill today, US safety chiefs issuing a please explain.
Constructive, shared everything I could.
Investigators want to know why defective door plugs were used, and so does Boeing's major customer, Alaskan Airlines.
Flight 1282 should never have happened. Boeing is better than this.
The airline's grounded its fleet of 737 MAX 9s, but a review found Boeing's quality slip-up wasn't isolated.
We found, some loose bolts on many of our MAX 9s.
This model, while not flown in Australia, is widely used across the US and Europe. Its future now in doubt.
Boeing may have initially thought it could have weathered this jumbo-sized public relations headache of having a door blow off one of its craft mid-flight. But as the manufacturers discovered over the past few weeks, the market can be a lot less forgiving.
A 20% hit to the value of its stocks, but a bigger hit to its reputation.
I'm more than frustrated and disappointed. I am angry.
In the United States, David Woywood, 7 News.
Back home, the Alfred Hospital's burns unit has reported a 42% increase in admissions in just 1 year. It's prompted a safety warning ahead of the long weekend, with the majority of accidents involving camps or bonfires. It's how Alex Tobin suffered burns to 18% of his body by using an accelerant.
I think I bumped into my mate behind me and the jerry can poured some petrol out. I think it ran up my leg and caught me on fire. It's not worth the risk.
Men aged 20 to 40 are overrepresented in these statistics. Time now to check finance news with Angela Cox. And Ange, the market heads into the long weekend on a 5-day winning streak.
That's right, the share market will be closed tomorrow, but it was looking good today. The ASX 200 finished 36 points higher. Iron ore miners leading the gains after China's central bank announced policy measures to boost its fragile economy. Local tech stocks slipped after Tesla reported underwhelming results and warned of a sharp sales slowdown. The Aussie dollar is buying just under 66 US cents. Iron ore is selling for more than $135 US a tonne. Oil over $80 US a barrel. And Domino's Pizza has lost a huge slice, with its shares down around 30% after a trading update. While hungry Australians and Germans are buying more pizzas, sales are down in its French and Asian stores.
Thanks, Ange. A roo has ended up in deep trouble trying to escape dogs in Gippsland. The marsupial was struggling in the middle of Lake Glenmaggie, but a jet ski rider came to its rescue.
You got this. Please save his life. I'm so sad. You got it, Kanga. You got it. Come on, buddy.
With the help of the man, the roo made it back to dry land, managing to hop away to safety. $150 million is on the line tonight. Next on 7 News, the magic numbers that could lead to a Powerball record. Also ahead, the flying kangaroo facing a backlash over a controversial in-flight video. Years of Grand Prix tradition set to end at Albert Park. And in sport, a shock exit at Moorabbin. Grand Prix fans will be banned from entering the track at the end of this year's Formula One race at Albert Park, ending years of tradition. The change in protocol comes after a dangerous security breach last year where patrons jumped the barrier while cars were still on the track. Organisers say fans will still be encouraged to stay for the podium presentation. Qantas has been accused of turning its in-flight safety video into a glossy advert, but the flying kangaroo insists it's a clever way to encourage travellers to pay attention about what to do during an emergency.
Hey, I'm Lachlan. I moved to Lapland to marry the love of my life.
It's the in-flight safety video that's not filmed inside an aircraft. Instead, passengers are reminded to buckle up by a sports car driver in Hollywood.
Fasten your seatbelt by inserting the clasp into the buckle.
How to use an oxygen mask. That takes place at Ningaloo Reef.
Oxygen will flow as you take a breath.
And the brace position is taught through a dance sequence in India.
Brace by placing your forehead on the back of the seat.
The Flight Attendants Association says the slick production misses the mark.
It doesn't focus enough on the really important safety message. Follow the directions of your cabin crew. They need people ready so that when an evacuation occurs, they get off the aircraft quickly and they follow their directions.
Qantas says it's designed to complement demonstrations by cabin crew. The video is about familiarising our customers with safety procedures, and we try to make it as engaging as possible. This is the first Qantas in-flight safety video in 4 years, commissioned by then CEO Alan Joyce. Rather than being more baggage for the former boss, some say it does a wonderful job.
What we've got here is something bright, it's a bit different, it highlights a whole lot of great destinations around the world and at the same time gives you a very sensible safety message.
Zoe Martin, 7 News.
Rare car number plates are fetching some eye-watering bids. NSW1 has so far attracted bids of $10.3 million, with the unreserved auction not closing until Saturday. First issued in the 1920s, the plates haven't been for sale since the 1930s. Bids for Queensland's first plates stand at $3 million. One Victorian could become the country's biggest lottery winner as the numbers fall in tonight's $150 million jackpot. It could be a life-changing sum for one person, but it would barely make a dent in the state's debt.
At $150 million, it's the second biggest lottery prize we've ever seen.
And if one person takes home the entire Division 1 jackpot, they'll become the biggest winner in the history of Australian lotteries as well.
They could buy their own private island in Florida, 65 of these Lamborghinis, a luxury yacht, or it could pay the interest on Victoria's debt for less than a week. With the state's net debt projected to hit $177 billion by 2027, the interest bill will be $8.7 billion. That's $23 million a day, meaning the prize would be spent in just 6.5 days. Despite that bleak prediction, more than half of Australian adults are expected to try their luck. In last week's draw, the peak of ticket sales was at 5:46 p.m, with more than 7,200 entries in a
single minute.
If you purchase yourself a power hit entry, it guarantees the Powerball, and then you just have to match 7 other numbers.
Sounds easy, it's not. Your chances of winning, 1 in 134 million. If no one has the winning ticket this time around, the prize will jackpot again next week.
The draw closes tonight at 7:30pm Australian Eastern Standard Time. It'll be about an hour and a half after that. We'll be making that winning phone call.
Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Sport is next with Tim Watson. And Tim, there's a silver lining at Carlton despite the injury heartbreak.
That's right, Mitch. We'll get the latest. A much sought-after signature on the way at the Blues, plus the pointed message to Luke Beveridge as the Dogs hand down their review. How a shock Saints departure played out behind closed doors. An Aussie fast bowler has Dennis Lilly in his sights at the Gabba, and a blockbuster rematch denied at the Australian Open as an Aussie veteran eyes a huge payday. Welcome back. There's been a shock departure at St Kilda just a couple of months out from the season. Chief Football Reporter Mitch Cleary has the details. And Mitch, Ross Lyon has seen off CEO Simon Lethlean.
Tim, it's a real power shift. Lethlean parting with the Saints less than 2 years into his role. His role at the club heavily diminished when it was the president, Andrew Bassett, who led the appointment of Ross Lyon, who's now essentially running football, shutting out Lethlean from his role. The Saints with a new football boss, list manager, head of recruiting and fitness, all inside 12 months. Ex-Kangaroos boss Carl Delena named interim CEO and among favourites for the role full-time. Here at Carlton, devastating news on Jack Silvani's ACL, but Michael Voss is closing in on a 2-year extension before round 1, just 6 months after calls for him to be sacked.
It's wise to try and tie up your coach before the season starts. Given his long-term view of our football club, our list management, where that's heading, we think it's really appropriate and right to and good business to reappoint Vossi and get him contracted as soon as possible.
And a blow at Melbourne. Key forward Ben Brown to miss the start of the season after more knee surgery. Tim?
Thanks, Mitch. The Western Bulldogs have revealed the findings of an external review. The club is holding firm with head of football Chris Grant. Recommendations included Luke Beveridge and his coaching staff focusing on their specific roles. Assistant Matt Egan has been promoted to a new position of General Manager of Football Operations. Mitchell Starc could finish with more test wickets than Dennis Lilly by the close of day 1 of the second test at the Gabba. Starc and the Aussie Quicks ripped through the West Indies top order. A short time ago, the Tourists 5 for 107.
Cameron Green played at COVID-safe distance. Australia chose the same bowlers for 5 straight tests for the first time in a decade.
You're a brave man trying to tell one of these boys they're going to miss a test match.
Josh Hazlewood's first ball.
Big shout for LBW and given.
Technology saved the Windies skipper and umpire. Brathwaite also survived a half-hearted Australian appeal and review, but looked inevitable. Green was unmercifully sent away from the Australian huddle. 2 left-handers, Taj Narayan Chanderpaul, especially Kirk McKenzie,
well, there's the first aggressive shots,
are the West Indies' great hopes. McKenzie, 23, raw, not at Pat Cummins' level yet.
Edge and taken.
McKenzie, 21, Chanderpaul, 21.
Gone.
Athanase next for 8.
Edge down. It's another wicket for Starc.
The great Mitchell Starc, 5th into Australia's 350 wicket club with Warne, McGrath, Lyon and Lilly, and counting.
Edged and taken by Khawaja.
5 for 64 at the tea break. De Silva and Hodge took the Windies past 100, and the natives are already restless. Matt Carmichael, 7 News.
The Hobart Hurricanes have joined the Perth Scorchers in the chase for Marcus Stoinis, but the Melbourne Stars are confident they will re-sign the out-of-contract all-rounder. The Melbourne Renegades are in the mix for Big Bash specialist Josh Brown. The Brisbane opener smashed another half-century in last night's grand final. Mike Anessa produced arguably the catch of the summer to help the Heat complete a 54-run win over the Sixers at a sold-out SCG.
And taken off. Brilliant. I think he might have been able to create a little miracle.
This is unbelievable piece of fielding from Nisa.
The Heat returned home earlier today with their second BBL title. Australian Open organisers won't get their dream men's final after Novak Djokovic's main rival was sent packing at Melbourne Park. An Aussie veteran, though, is in line for a huge payday on the final day at Melbourne Park.
Hardly ready to throw in the towel just yet. Rain halted Novak Djokovic's practice session this afternoon. Many saw his biggest threat to an 11th Australian Open crown to be Carlos Alcaraz.
Oh, he's done it, and that is the finest win of his career.
Serving at close to 90%, Alexander Zverev dismantled the world number 2, although his first semi-final in 4 years at Melbourne Park didn't come easy.
I have a lot of blood under my toenails, so that's quite painful.
Alcaraz briefly threatened a comeback, winning the third set, but there would be no dream match-up with Djokovic in the final.
Obviously, a quarterfinal of a Grand Slam is good. It's not what I'm looking for, but it's not bad, you know.
Zverev and Daniil Medvedev square off tomorrow night for a spot in the final. The pair have met 18 times, but never at a Grand Slam.
He's been kicking my ass a lot over the last year or so.
10 years since Li Na charmed her way to an Australian Open title, Zhong Qingwang booked her spot in her first Grand Slam semi-final and into the world's top 10.
I'm so happy right now, really excited.
Some Aussie flavour left at Melbourne Park. Matt Ebden through to the men's doubles final. His partner, Rohan Bopana, the #1 player in the world at age 43. Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
Mitch, and the dreaded ACL, heart goes out to Jack Silvani tonight.
It can be a brutal game, can't it, Tim?
It can be.
Out for the season. Best wishes to Jack. Jane Bunn is next with the forecast. And Jane, how long is the rain with us?
Well, Mitch, the rain does continue through the night, but tomorrow looks generally dry. I'll have full details next. Hello again. Rain has settled in and it should stick with us through the night. We peaked at 24 in the city after a low of 17 early this morning. Pockets of sunshine, but fairly grey, and so calm on the bay in light winds. That grey increased later, particularly as the rain began. A few suburbs only reached 22, 21 in Point Cook, but Geelong peaked at 25. There were hit and miss storms during late morning and early afternoon. Now, mainly over northern suburbs, but not completely sticking there. Quick lightning and hardly any rain. But then the actual rain settled in mid-afternoon, and yes, that was a few hours earlier than expected. It's not the heavy rain we've seen recently, but it should continue through the night. It is a band of rain that is crossing Victoria. There were embedded storms this morning and early afternoon, but now generally just steady light rain that'll keep coming tonight. Where the rain is falling has a big impact on temperatures. Horsham just 20, 19 in Nil, but Mildura soared up to 38 degrees. Cyclone Kirrily rapidly developed today, now a Category 3. Like it across the coast late this evening around Townsville, but the gales are felt from Innisfail near Cairns down to Serena near Mackay. Once it moves inland, it loses those intense winds, but the rain does continue in its path. Another tropical low, this one over Western Australia, that's causing our rain. A big northwest cloud band right in through there with us on the end of it. That gradually clears tomorrow. Then we'll have a few days with a high pressure system sitting back here over to our west. That puts us on its mild side. That high will move out to our east on Monday, so that's our next hot day. Around the nation tomorrow, all dry in Brisbane. It's 38 for Sydney before an afternoon cool change, mostly sunny. Dry by the morning for a mild Friday in Adelaide, sunny and low 30s for Perth. To Victoria, by dawn, the last of the rain here. It is crossing the far east and clearing. After that, the south just has the odd shower, cool to mild in a mix of sun and clouds. The north turns to warm sunshine. Winds are moderate to breezy southwesterly. Closer in, here's the overnight rain. Look at that tonight and after midnight too, least likely in the far south. But here it goes, it clears around dawn, and tomorrow we're generally dry. Just the odd shower here over eastern suburbs in the morning and early afternoon. afternoon. The rain clears the city by dawn. Tomorrow, 22, a mix of sun and cloud. Now, there is the chance of a shower around the middle of the day, but that is all. To the 8-day outlook on Saturday and Sunday morning, the odd light shower over southeastern suburbs. Otherwise, the rest of the long weekend is dry. The mild temperatures do continue. Our next temperature spike is Monday, 31, but it is for 1 day only. We are 22 tomorrow. The rain clears by dawn. It is generally dry tomorrow. Just that chance, the odd shower around the middle of the day. So wet night, generally dry tomorrow, Mitch.
OK, thanks very much, Jane. Now, here's what's on Sunrise in the morning.
Thanks, Mitch. Tomorrow on Sunrise, Melbourne's new real estate scam. Fake listings, fake accommodation, costing locals and visitors thousands. How to spot the elaborate trap.
Plus, children under 5 with their own mobile phone. Why more Aussie families are taking up the controversial trend.
See you in the morning, Melbourne.
And that's the way it is this Thursday, the 25th of January. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.
Stream 7 News anytime, live and on demand on 7plus. And with 7news.com.au, you'll know the news now.